News, views, voices of the global Indian community. India abroad.
You know, it's just looking at the sheer numbers. Unfortunately, Indian Americans are grossly underrepresented in positions of power and elected office all throughout the country at all levels of government. Being able to be one of the first Indian Americans elected to the state house in Michigan is something that I carry a great amount of severity with, and understanding that I represent kind of so many communities behind me. It's very important to me to continue to build a platform to make sure that we are lifting up our community and all marginalized communities to find a way for everyone to kind of reach their potential. I think, you know, there needs to be a little bit of a culture shift in the level of engagement. I think a lot of people point towards just the lack of civic engagement amongst the Indian community and the South Asian community, broadly speaking. We want to increase voter turnout, we want to increase voter registration, we want to increase just kind of voter awareness and education. And I think as we start kind of doing some of those fundamental and foundational things, I think we will then start seeing more people run for office and kind of get involved in the civic process. It's extremely important to me and dear to my heart to provide a platform, especially for our youth, to be able to kind of understand how the system is set up and encourage them to kind of really seriously consider running for office. I think a lot of people kind of just want to jump into the deep end of the pool. It's important to do a little bit of research and do your homework of what exactly you hope to accomplish. Because I think a lot of people think the only way to get involved is to run for office. But conversely, there are many roles down to the lowest levels of government that are appointed that don't involve an election or campaigning. There's vacant positions where you could run unopposed. And then there's also just positions on the staff side, in the staff level. And so all of those, I think, are worth serious consideration to see what exactly is the best fit for the goals that an individual is trying to accomplish. And then if ultimately you want to run for office, build the relationships, do your homework, and once you make the decision, kind of go full force and try to accomplish your goals. Yeah, I'm a strong believer that I think the issues of the Indian American community are not much different than the broader issues that our government, that the society in America is facing. Being based out of Michigan, I can tell you, kind of the kitchen table issues that we talk about with inflation and the economy, and ensuring that our public education system is strong. All of those issues that are dear to the Indian community, the Asian community, are important issues to the broader Michigan community. And so I think really, there just needs to be more outreach from elected officials, from campaigns to these communities that have been largely marginalized, and making sure that you are talking to them in a way that they understand, that they want to be communicated, and really encouraging them to get more involved in this political process. Yeah. So a lot of people aren't familiar. A lot of people aren't familiar with the role of the majority whip. But I guess succinctly said, the role of the whip is as when the Speaker of the House decides to put a certain bill up for vote, it is my job to make sure that we have the number of votes necessary to pass a specific bill. So in Michigan, that constitutes to 56 votes. So it's my job to find a path to 56 votes. And so why it's kind of an interesting role is it really allows me to form a relationship with all of my members on both sides of the aisle to really kind of understand what motivates them, what issues are important to them, and where they're going to be on a specific bill, and which allows me to kind of be a part of bigger conversations to negotiate things to really, again, find that way to 56. So the majority whip is a leadership role within our caucus, albeit at times it causes me a little bit of gray hairs. It is really nice to be able to connect and learn about what motivates each individual colleague of mine. Yes, yeah. Obviously we don't do these things for those accolades, but I think it unfortunately speaks to just the lack of civic engagement amongst the Indian American community. And so, hopefully there's a world in which, there are more majority whips out there that look like me, that have names that sound like mine. But ultimately the goal is to just get the community more centered around the political process and more civically engaged. It's a dire situation in Michigan. I think Michigan, for many cycles, has been ground zero for a presidential election. There's very few maps out there that show a pathway for victory for a presidential candidate that doesn't include Michigan, especially in a cycle like this in 2024. The incidents and the catastrophe that's happening overseas is very top of mind for Michigan voters. Michigan is proudly home to a very significant Arab American population, but this issue is top of mind for far more reaching than just the Arab community. This is something that the youth and progressive side of the caucus is really prioritized as an issue. I think without a serious shift in policy, it really casts the results of November in doubt. At the end of the day, it's the loss of human life. We have seen evidence of tens of thousands of innocent civilians, men, women, and children who have lost their lives. I think this is a time in which the politics needs to be put aside, and we need to lead with empathy. It is not in human morals to sit by and watch tens of thousands of innocent men, women, and children be killed. And so I think it's just a lack of understanding and the hypocrisy of why there's not the outrage that should exist if this incident was happening in a different part of the world. And so I think it really comes down to something like that. And a lot of this is funded by U.S. By the U.S. budget. And so it's really a time that we kind of have a reckoning, and again, put the politics aside and understand and start rationalizing why what we are doing, and if that is really what we are trying to accomplish. No, I think if there's ever an opportunity to save lives, I think that it's never too late to make that decision. I'm not intimately, I guess, aware of where exactly kind of the votes will play out in November. I don't have that kind of that black ball to look into. But I can tell you, without a serious shift, it really puts the results of November in danger. I think so. I think a lot of policies. Unfortunately, I think the way kind of media coverage ends up playing out is on the focus of a federal election. Elections don't happen every 4 years. They happen every year, every 2 years, and below the top of the ticket are dozens of other candidates fighting for positions at all levels of government who are all part of the political process and this puzzle that comes together to make government work. And so, I think it is, I think we should remain cognizant of all levels of government and making sure that we are making our voices heard as Americans, to make sure that the values that we have, are being portrayed by the makeup of our government. Yeah, my parents came from northern India, from Punjab, in the late 60s, early 70s. And, it's a story I've shared a number of times today. And they immigrated, of all places that they could pick from, they ended up picking small town Wisconsin. And so I was ultimately born in Wisconsin many years later, and have lived in the Midwest as a first-generation immigrant myself. And I'm extremely proud of the sense of community and culture that they've instilled in me, and it's something that has shaped kind of the way I view my work and the policy that I work towards. My story is unfortunately born in tragedy. As I mentioned, my parents immigrated here nearly 50 years ago, and when they immigrated, their story is very similar to immigrants of that time. In 2012, I was working for President Obama. And for those that may remember, in August of 2012, a white supremacist walked in to that same community, State Gurudwara in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, and opened fire, killing 6 innocent souls that day. And there's gun violence is something that happens far too frequently in this country. But when the victims are people that you know, your close family, your close friends, it really strikes you different. The tragedy in which my story was born out of ended up coming full circle and being able to help lead those changes in the state of Michigan.